Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. The Great Walk continues. And what could be the journey of animate conception? I thought of this idea of the Great Walk as one of the most epic ideas. That it's not per se the walk of bodies. It's not a physical walk per se, but it is the continuity of animate life. All living beings are prioritizing life. Both the bad guy, the good guy, even different levels of animals, from insects to superior forms of intelligence. That means it's like the fear is very obvious. Many intelligent species, pretty much fear is kind of like our organization system to some degree. Our ancestors feared something, and so they adjusted, they changed their behavior. We can say fear is one of the biggest motives to change. And because of this fear of discontinuity, evolution has kept its head high. Excuse me, guys. So, anyways, fear is a motive. This concept of fear has even gone so deep that we have a psychologist by the name of Freud. And he has a book which is The Future of an Illusion. And in this book, he suggests the idea that as long as man is afraid of death, he kind of cannot let go of reality, whatever kind of reality it may be. That means when we don't know, when we experience unknown states, those are the states where we tend to want to grab onto knowledge. This great walk can be seen to be an intent of the world, or it can be seen as an intent of the human being who has chosen to see a world of meaning. That means your great walk can be from the beginning of your lifetime till the end. Or it can be a consideration that there is endless civilizations rising, falling, rising, falling, rising, falling. Do you know? Just think about how many kinds of human beings have walked this earth, and our walk is one of those walks. You know? It's this fascinating situation where, because we are focused on the individual, what is important is what we immediately see. You know what it is? It's kind of like a desire is not an objective phenomenon. It's not an, even though a person desires an object, but the one getting satisfied from that object is not an object. You know, it's a cool time to be alive. Maybe in 1,000 years, the hard problem of consciousness, the mysteries of whether our thinking is linearly limited or non-linearly limitless, or if this world is even beyond computation. That's really what the implication of language, there being something more than language, is. Right now, my words are, they are being symbols, most likely in the listener's ears, because as I speak, I also hear myself. So there's something unique that when a person speaks, it's like their brain. Imagine like, imagine if, okay, imagine there's a sentence, let's say, I like apples. Okay, I don't personally, but I'm saying, let's say there's the sentence, I like apples. Now, if imagine first situation, we have person A just saying I like apples. Situation two is when person B is saying I like apples to person A. What I mean is that because we hear ourselves, we are always listening when we speak. So our ears are active before we speak. So that means reception is occurring prior to expression. And when you express, it's a simultaneous reception. You know, sometimes when I speak, I say the words and then I just wait and I see the inner event. And sometimes the inner event is there before the words. So I feel that really there's an attention that the body provides, and then there's an attention where the whole body is in. Therefore, from a path of inspection towards introspection. The Great Walk, you know, one thing I realized about creatures in nature, animals, is that they behave regardless of their opinion on self. That means it's as if they either can't have an, I mean, it's not the case. Not all animals are the same. Like, for example, there's a type of squirrel that gets like a, I don't know, nut or something, you know, and wants to hide this nut. And when it notices another squirrel is watching, it acts. It acts like it's hiding it and runs and hides it somewhere else. That means, I mean, look at the sophistication of that animal. There's something about elephants, even, where there were a group of elephants, and elephants, their leader is female, like in the packs, I feel. Not I feel, like I've heard this. Feminism has, like elephants have a matriarchy, it seems. But the whole point is that there was this elephant, this leader, and pretty much the group of elephants go back to the bones of like the sister of that elephant, and people are like recording this. And the elephants go and one by one they touch or they pass around the bone from the sister elephant that had died. And they were all touching the bone as if some sort of ceremonial consciousness that something that was there is gone and they're consciously honoring it. There is something very chaotic about the human position that we may not be able to see anything outside of the human perception. That means there could be this idea that the peak of our creativity, I don't feel it's the case, this is the case, but I feel this idea is going to be important in the future. That is it possible to identify another type of intelligence when we have identified intelligence through the human framework first? Pretty much we are in space and stuff is existing. And it has a choice to continue or discontinue. Like, and people feel the world's normal. How adorable. There is nothing normal about being on a rock in the middle of nowhere. Normality is just a word. It's a word or it's a pointer to the easy. That means an easy life doesn't require a lot of multidimensionality. It's like imagine you're a farmer. It's totally fine. You can just accept being a farmer. Or you can see that just as how you have accepted you're a farmer, it's the same type of acceptance for other archetypes. And the cool thing is, we don't just have a current archetype. It's not like the person has one ego. It all has to do with how the dimension is fragmented before identity is extracted. If the world is multidimensional and we're identifying with something, identity is hollow. If the world is not multidimensional, if everything is existentially just here, that means we don't consider like parallel universe theory goes out of the door. All sort of transcendental frameworks of thought go out of the door. The essence, it's like we go towards a sort of kind of, I guess, very close to Sartre, a sort of existential atheism where there is no essence behind the surface. So there's various angles human beings are using their eyes in different ways, or you can say there is different implementation of programs of eyes. And what really living is holding on to a momentum. When we treat the body as a vehicle for the attention of mind, when you realize that just as you are being your body, you're also being your attention, you're being the awareness to the moment. That means it's this weird position where the candle flame and the wax of the candle, which is the body of the candle, they have communication between one another. So it seems like this ever-present glow of a spacious mind is authorizing embodied transition. So it's like we're creatures in a changing world, and all our philosophies are limited to that. This is such a huge idea. This is why I'm saying language can't contain truth, because what beliefs are doing is ignoring how the universe is changing. And this is why people feel like there is a sort of arrogance when one person takes, because taking is kind of like living in a photo on a wall. you know a lot of people who gain power, they don't understand how to use power. They feel the power is theirs. That's how it starts. That's how the dissension starts. That means we have powerful noobs, powerful multidimensional noobs. And what that means is every intelligent movement, if we're going to go through a series of if statements, if let us say if the world is multidimensional, then we can say language which is used from the images of the world, if our language appears multidimensional, it's a suggestion our experience of world can be multidimensional. It's this really next level philosophical, I guess, consideration where could it be that the moment we created language, we became multidimensional and there was no way of seeing ourselves no longer being multidimensional, as if like our eyes, the universal memory was scarred for life, you know. So if language is a multidimensional technology, if language is made in the image of the world, then we can say language is multidimensional, or language is providing for now the multidimensionality of the world, you know. That moment where I remember there was this Oprah episode, Oprah Winfrey episode. And guys, I just remember seeing like only like maybe 2, 3 episodes ever of like from the Oprah Winfrey show. But there was one episode where she was giving cars, you know, and I don't know, I just turned on the TV and I'm like, okay, this seems like an interesting show. And it was like a car for you, a car for you, and a car for you. It was like there was this vibe of different dimensions to give. Imagine right now we realized there were endless parallel realities of Earth. Let's say we suddenly noticed our oceans are drying up, but we found a parallel reality of Earth where Earth was extinct and the oceans were accessible. And imagine, for example, there was this massive project to bring the oceans from another planet into our own, or in some sense move the whole species there, you know, to experience the wonders of that parallel reality or whatever. And I'm thinking the best option would be 50-50. That means both worlds become inhabitable, but with less water each, maybe. I'm just saying language is what we're using as individuals, right? And language is a reflection of the world, and yet language is incredibly multidimensional. How many ways are there to say a sentence? How many ways are there to sequence words? And so, after we realize the language is endlessly incarnating in our minds as new ideas, when we realize that we have never had the same body, physical, but the body changes, the cells. So what does that mean? That means there is some instruction in the void for the application of living intelligence. Ancient cultures, they saw the truth outside of this world or beyond it. In our current culture, we have decided there is no truth outside. Look at how cruel the world is. Look at how messed up people are. Look at all the mistakes we've made. So we've reached a position where the free will has to perform on a global scale. You know what it is? We are like a civilization inside a cocoon of language, and all the ideas on the advancement of humanity in the future are the cocoon, and in the implementation of the free will to the world, to the chaos of the world, I feel free will is the key that needs to go through the unknown door. something of the participation of all the tools at the disposal of the person. That means honestly, like pretty much all that's expected from human beings is to do the best you can, pretty much. And the best has to come from the excitement of you wanting to see what your best is. You know, a lot of people, they're fascinated by others, but when will there come a day when they will be fascinated by their own potential, by their own eyes, the journey of their own energetic alchemy into a realm? Freedom doesn't have a shape. So we can say shapes are classifications in the void. And really, we are reaching, I guess, really the most ultimate idea. Should we define randomity? Like that means is when things that are, let's say, they happen with a certain order, do we see that as, is that a type of randomity, or is randomity a type of order? That means, is what is random random? Is what is random? This is definitely going to be a talk later. Is what is random random? We are animate. We have a sophisticated use of language that many other species don't. We have a consciousness to our mortality ideologically, with an ability to visualize even what may happen to us in the future when we step out of the door, that other animals don't. And the only reason we are caring for the species, the only reason we can care for the species, is because we have evolved to notice it. We have evolved to notice existence. And what could the meaning be? What could the meaning of the newest, let's say, smartphone be that they're selling outside? The newest TV? What is the meaning of the new? To pave the way for the newer. And for the newer to pave the way for the newest. And that's how we keep humanity from breaking itself. You know, meaning can't be extracted unless we move. So how we are conceived to ourselves suggests how we move is based on how we move, and how we move is based on how you move in your inner realm. So I am saying, anybody who's listening, before you do anything in whatever, at work or wherever, just pause. Let your mind like have the motive to do something. Let's say a person wants to drink a glass of water, and before drinking the glass of water, look at your motive. Look at everything and let the mind process. It's kind of very unique. It's such a new behavioral thing that I think so many people are not used to it, and the films that we have made have not displayed this. That means imagine a person who is angry. Usually you see angry people in a movie. But imagine this angry person just leaves or sits down and lets the anger pass, then continues on. And imagine it's the same. I'm telling you, just pause and let the mind get there. Maybe 2 minutes. Sometimes emotions come, and whatever opinion you have to just wait it out. This is why I'm saying, like, I found a strategy. Like, I had a neighbor where I think domestic violence was happening, and this was when I was in an apartment in the Finch area, and I went and said it to the apartment, and I'm like, yo, what is this? And it was nothing they could do. It was weird. So it was in this situation, and I would hit the wall a couple times to make him kind of be quiet. But it was like this situation where I can tell you, I thought about how does a relationship get physical so quick? That means what is being taken away from the inner realms of the people, because violence is heartlessness. Violence is when the other person has become like a video game character. You have no care for how they're alive. You have no care for how their mind is rhythmically moving through the day. Do you know? This was something I didn't realize. That sometimes people, just like when somebody speaks and you interrupt them, the person kind of feels they have to say it again with a certain flow. It's sometimes living the day like that, where how you start from the beginning and the type of flow you have, where if something goes off, the person feels off flow. Literally, if you connected, this would be one of the most unique words, guys. The word off flow, but connected together is one word. A word, first word maybe in the English language that has 3 F's in it. Or maybe one of the words. I could see Puft having one, but anyways, guys, I'm just trying to say that we are animate, and conception is instantaneous as how we are animate. But if we notice that our mind moves or is moving, even though our body is still, you could be still and your mind could still move. Your attention to how your mind is to yourself pretty much moves. As the attention moves around, it changes the way the mind is. Really, what's in my attention suggests the next sentence. You look at it from the mystical angle, we are God in disguise. when you look at it from the secular angle, we are disguised, but we're not gods yet. There was a sentence in the show Rick and Morty which was so heavy. And I don't know which episode it was. It was like the new season. And there was Rick said, Rick was saying something as if like he earned, I don't know what the statement was. It was as if Rick was saying, I wasn't born into being a god. I earned it. And like Rick is a character in this show, Rick and Morty, where he's like this smartest scientist in the cosmos or something. So I'm saying, in the secular view, you're trying to become a god, and in the non-secular view, you are not you're not a god. You are, everybody's already god. Like that would be the idea. So I'm saying that's the thing. It's like this is where the soul poetically tests itself in accordance to everything. And that's really what it is. The egoic constructs that people entertain that leads to, let us say, social tension and individualism. That ego is a prototype for godhood. The ego is our greatest clue to creating an interface that connects us to, when we can make an ego. I mean, this is very complex, but I'm kind of feeling like energy can't be created and destroyed, so technically the walk of existential phenomena is endless. So because energy doesn't die, how can we, if consciousness was energy simultaneous? You know, people don't realize every day happens once. Every day the person holds back, it's one day that passed where you can say the person just existed, they didn't live. In order to live, it has to be surpassing the self. That means it's like after a person has fed themselves and they're full, what then? What do they think about then? Just like the billionaire philanthropists we have, they start thinking about others, right? Because once you finish the game and you see it's like an empty room, then you can't be like, I don't understand how someone can reach the edge of power, see the cosmos as an empty room, and feel, do you know what I mean? To play a sort of chaotic game. You see, so there are those who know how to wield chaos, and there are those who actually, I feel I don't know what it is. I think it's the inner child got banished too soon from its own trust. So I feel that it's as if people who are very vicious and manipulative, they are forgetting something. They're forgetting their own childhood to some degree. They're forgetting how simple they were, how weak they were, and how everybody feels like they are on a battlefield. Imagine the mind is the intermediary between a known dimension and an unknown dimension. In the known dimension, we appear as chess pieces based on the laws of the universe, a certain chessboard, da da da. But in the unknown, we could be alive regardless of the human idea. That means we should be so conscious as human beings that we are conscious that awareness and the human awareness is the spotlight. Your mind is a sphere of attention. I have a character in my science fiction novel. His name is Lord Karta. He has 4 hands. And in one of his hands, he has a spear. In the other hands, he suddenly brings this sphere. He creates this sphere of flame, and he's a sun being. There's something in my science fiction novel called the Central Sun Legion, where all the suns of the cosmos are headquarters for like the galactic police, which is the Central Sun Legion, you know. And so it's kind of this idea of you take a sphere and with your free will, you direct it. That means it's like the body can create the energy, but it's the mind that moves it, you know? And to live as a mind is not, I think, is not a hand that many people are dealt, especially if they try to live in, if you see emptiness before it can be full, you can never know it can be full. That's the issue with non-duality being in sort of back in the day. They had no choice. There was nothing to do back in the day. It was so easy to renounce the world. It was so easy to be non-dual. But now where the circumstances have changed, you know what it's like? Imagine you played a chess game hundreds of thousands of years ago, and now you're playing the same opponent, but it's not the same tactic. You know, it could be the same pieces, but it's not the same chess game. You know, and that's the thing. There's moments in life where our truths are event based, and this is why we are social creatures as human beings. And they're experience oriented and event oriented. But then there is another manner where it is as if like the eagle can be on the branch, or the eagle can fly in the sky and see all the whole forest. In the unknown realms, your mind becomes literally like that eagle, where attention and moment become inseparable. Right now, we are separating. We are like some phenomena that has extended, this biological phenomena that has extended from the earth and has named itself. Holy shit! You know, excuse my language, but it's definitely, something that's divine and goes beyond the senses. I don't know what other word I can use. The great walk continues, and the walk of our minds could be, there could be a huge percentage at the back of each person's conscious being. It's one conscious being. Like it could totally be the case because like this whole thing about animals displaying conscious behavior, it makes me feel the mind is not being inputted from this dimension. Our imagination is not from the outer realms. It's being received. It's being received. Either we're multidimensional and we have senses we don't know about, or another way would be like we are a conscious mind, and from a Jungian standpoint, there's the unconscious, and so it's something communicating to us from the unconscious, or we stop the war of eons in an instant. I'm telling you, as a human being, before you can accept complex archetypes, think of it as a video game. Okay, before you can experience more complex versions of yourself, you have to find contentment and comfort with simpler versions of the self. Now, I've done something unique in my own universe of thought where I have created the term eventum. The term eventum is like an atom. If we are saying it's like the smallest particle, and then there's smaller particles in the atom, of course. But I'm saying if we say the atom is the smallest particle, just as a unit, okay, then I thought, okay, let's see the psychology like an atom. Let's see that what we are right now, who I'm calling, Mr. Within is an online alias. My real name's Amin, but who I am. Strangely, it's as if my mind has never touched earth. I feel our minds cannot die, but our bodies are designed to. And so, as we are this temporary, simple design, and honestly, the circumstances are so odd. Like we're on a rock, and the atmosphere is creating the potential for life. It's so mind blowing. Like who would have looked at a rock and be like, yeah, that's going to create an atmosphere on itself, you know? It's like it's just like somebody wants to find order as in a chaotic system choosing a singular position. That means, let's say you've come to a battlefield and there's different kinds of enemies, different kinds of warfare occurring on the battlefield. So the person chooses, they chooses what they can fight, you know? I keep feeling like I'm in a sphere of language and I keep kind of like trying to go to the top, and my head he keeps hitting this, like, imagine elastic sphere of language. I feel energy really can't have a definition, but anything we want to define, we need energy to define it. So technically, energy is killing itself on this planet. That means when people fight where there has been wars, who knew this whole time we've been judging energy? The mystery of energy, really. That's the closest thing. If we have, I think one of the closest thing to a wizardry school in the future would probably be like this kind of school of the most advanced science fiction like gadgets all being implemented and tried to be made. Because language has played its games. Language is like an entity. It's like we think language, of course, is something we created, but the motives and the rhythms that guided us to doing that, it's an entity. And you know what's going on? I think a collective being, I feel just like how we look at the cosmos and we're like, okay, individual beings exist. What are the odds that collective beings also exist, right? And I feel we have been in a symbiosis with a collective being, and this collective being is passing away. This is a totally, I would say, neo-metaphysical viewpoint I'm sharing here. That it's as if God is giving all that it can before it is no longer God to itself. The command that makes change stop. we must step out of the language jungle. Just like how we stepped out of the jungle into concrete, and we, in some sense, we entered the concrete jungle. We adapted to a totally different dimension, different way of life. Now we require to do one more shift. And the sooner people realize they're not their thoughts, the language of their own mind doesn't resist them. Do you know? That means I'm telling you, think of the mind as a living being. Think of it as a lion. I'm not joking. Think of the mind as a lion, as the animal lion. And your mind, if you don't treat it well, if you don't notice it's alive, if you don't notice your own potential, the mind roars at you. The mind is like, what the F, man? The mind's like, I've been here for a lifetime, buddy. Care to look? You know? So it's like a symbiosis. It's literally like a lion that, I don't want to say you write it like a fictional show, but like it's like you just trust. It's like you trust the world through your mind. What other way is there? The great walk continues through the breadth of creatures that are the artwork, their own artwork of meaning. We are expressions. The day we see, in my science fiction novel, I had this very unique and a bit absurd to now, I guess, idea. And what it was that I saw, so my science fiction novel is set in the year 5025. And the world is divided between the futurists and the traditionalists. The traditionalists believe in linear time as if a past, present, future. The futurists, they're eternalists. They're eternal. They're pretty much robots, aliens who feel they're so one with energy they can't die. Do you know, even certain humans have gone to that side. You know, immortal beings are all on the futurist side. They're technically in the society, in the human civilization, seen as futurists, right? And the government I designed, first of all, there's like 9 parallel realities, if I remember correctly. And out of these nine parallel realities, there's a story I created with the government. First of all, human beings have gotten so enlightened in this science fiction novel I've written that robots are living like human beings. Human beings have become like angelic figures to robots. Robots are walking the city, but they can't even see certain human beings. So the government is called, in the sci-fi novel I've written, is called the Enlightened Society, and it's the first government in history that was multidimensional. That means it was governing multiple parallel realities of Earth at the same time. And the story of the Enlightened Society is very funny because it began when the first artist became a politician. When an artist became a politician, this artist, instead of spending funds on the military, this artist decided to create the most beautiful nation. Other world leaders got jealous of the beauty of their nations, and for the first time, all nations treated all language, everything as artwork. In the outer realms, it's an art simulation. And here's a really good question: where does freedom come from? True freedom. Does true freedom mean the body is free, but the psychological entity is still suffering? Or does freedom mean the psychological entity is free, but the body is suffering? Or does freedom even mean what we leave behind? As if we were all, it's like the moment you see a candle melt, you have seen the destiny of the universal sector to some degree. That is why all that life can be is an opportunity, and endless celebration cultures will develop. Right now, we are what is taking our attention. It's like you can even see it in the PC culture in, I don't know, in certain videos I've seen that in like America, uh, celebrities or something intense is happening. And so what is that? That is sensitivity to language, but on the inferior. That means imagine all those people would have come and said that it's like, here's the thing, when somebody does something wrong, the first thing to do is remind them who they are. You know, after you remind them who they are, then you want to lift up that person. You know, so it's like the mob mentality getting smart enough to realize that if it focuses on uh, the efficient vibration of the moment, you can say, it focuses on efficiency, then you forgive people very easily and you're like, okay, whatever. It's like there were mistakes, carry on. You know, that it's like there's only one idea that is more, I feel, the ultimate motivation for the planet, and it's the advanced civilization idea. There will come a time where we will build a castle in the sky. Imagine endless castles in the sky 600 years from now. You know, it's master your simplicity, master your complexity. Realize your eyes are being authored by the eyes of your mind, and the eyes of your mind are being authored by the presence of the universal sector. Close your eyes as a man and open your eyes as a universe. It is about time we move beyond time. Thanks for listening, guys. Actually, before I end off, kind of feeling a bit energetic. Let me see. There's this book I wrote in, what's the year? 2015. And it's called Commands of a Cosmic General. And it's different entries. Just short entries. So I'm going to read this one, which is called Escapades of an Untimely Hour. What marches through the halls of despair, not giving in to what has been taken? Some messages are not made for ears in dualistic planes. Can the pilot remember the absolute through a single cell in his veins? All are accessible beyond the limitations that have accepted themselves, run beyond the shadows that cannot see the sun, here and now, shining as one. Learn from the many ways your world turns. For all worlds, what did I write here? For all world turns are turning, Okay, I'll read that again. For all world turns are turning you within. In the last complaint of a sober man to be alive, he shall see the death of an idea does not need to be. Oh, sorry, I'll read that again. In the last complaint of a sober man to be alive, he shall see the death of an idea does need to be a goodbye. Free yourself from the temporal obligations that are not the clarity in our vision. All instruments are played with a love beyond the doer. But what can be beyond the doer? Ask the beings of causality about the cracks in the mirror. Black were not made by frames that needed to be pinned. Oh, black holes. Black holes were not made by frames that needed to be pinned higher. The hierarchy requires an admiration of emptiness to be full. The spectrum is not the convict, if your hands. It is your... Oh my God. It is your hands that are full. Guys, maybe I should double check these before I read them. There's this poem I wrote this 2017. It's called The Royalty of Reality. What makes the royalty of reality endure nobly beyond time and space? Can the ink of a transcendental pen truly finish? Do not hide the multidimensionality you are. The pilots of consciousness are here to fly for all of us. There are some pillars of existence that small not as people, but as sectors of universal presence. Could all drops also be the great ocean? We are all creating life from death. Perhaps that is how we know how to walk omnipresently to any classroom that form chooses. Just like a book written by you and read later on, could you be the origin of the ending that needs to start? Smile, my beloved, smile. You may not realize it yet, but you are the one who is keeping the stars alive. The next poem from Heaven's Halo is A Faith Beyond Words. Why am I writing? Many questions come and go, like old friends that have noticed the eternal within the temporal. A great war requires a great commander. Perhaps that is why you have materialized. All joy belongs to divine territory. Are you ready to walk within yourself? For a beggar with a selfless pen can no longer write as a beggar. This life is a glory felt through all that can be yours. But can an ant own a human, or is the whole concept of ownership flawed? To be flawlessly free, you must become your own sunrise. The last poem for tonight, guys, is called Glory of the Absolute. Who has blessed you with divine truth? Is it your self of selves that speaks through all that you have heard spoken? Are people people, or is it all a divine field of untouchable intelligence? The next time you look at the sky, don't forget to polish your cosmic mirror. We are all part and parcel of the glory of the Absolute. Before you consider this page, can you see it be turned? Before you consider this page, can you see it be turned? And guys, actually, I'm going to read one more poem. This poem is called This Mystery. So from the same book, Heaven's Halo. What makes the free beyond their own comprehension? Is faith a language cave or something more? All realities are as real as you are. Who has made form into a clay pot? Many cry tears of joy, many cry tears of sorrow, but only some wise one can at the same time do both. What gives hope to the hopeless when the endurance cannot be kept by energy drinks? Why are we here? Have you wondered about this mystery? Thanks for listening, everyone. Blessings. The great walk continues. Rise, mankind, rise.